Globalization is a widely discussed topic, and also it is not very easy to explain such a complicated term in simple words. So let's start from the very beginning background of globalization in South Africa.
Advanced technologies such as mobile phones, telephones, internet, and airplane have made growth of transport and communication network possible. This means that people and countries can exchange information and goods more quickly and also in a less complicated way. This process is called globalization. Actually, when the first Asian human migration took place, which promoted mobility, culture, language, and even disease, it was the first mode of globalization. The second globalization mode is called trade. For example, people travel from Old World, Europe, to Eastern World like China to trade for silk or other luxury goods. Financial liberalization is called the third mode of globalization, which means governments around the world have relaxed the laws to restrict trade and foreign investment, with some government offering grants and tax incentives to persuade foreign companies to invest in their countries. Well, you may ask, how can globalization spread out by itself? Actually, there are some agents such as trader, adventure, soldier, internet, and government organizations.
So, what are the objectives of globalization?
The first objective is sales expansion. For example, a company's business may be only within its country before globalization. However, thanks for the benefits of globalization, more and more people outside the country or region know this company, so company's reputation increases. In order to earn more profits and also cater for more people's needs, company will enlarge or expand its business to other regions. The second objective is to acquire more resources like labor, capital, land, and technology. For instance, in developing countries, the labor is more cheaper and also there are a huge amount of land is unexplored. These are also the factors that attract numbers of companies from developed countries to invest here. The third objective is globalization tends to reduce inequality between developed countries and developing countries. As the leading international organization in tourism field, UNWTO promotes tourism as a driver for economic growth. The Departments of International Relations and Cooperation and Home Affairs briefed the committee on their efforts in promoting tourism in South Africa. DIRCO's efforts were guided by South Africa's membership to United Nations World Trade Organization. Staff and officials were given special training on tourism promotion, marketing materials, and information were also made available at missions abroad. The DHA department provided the committee with specific details on its efforts to manage immigration. New processes would assist in promoting tourism in South Africa. The DHA department followed an onion ring approach to immigration management, which extended the borders of South Africa to the country of departure of the visitor. Visa applications were thus made at missions in those countries. The DHA department also granted multiple entry visas to frequent travelers. If it was known that a person was low risk, then a 2 to 3 year multiple entry visa would be granted.
After transitioning to a democracy in the 1990s, South Africa became a tourism powerhouse with one of the best infrastructures in the region. During the past 2 decades, South Africa's tourism industry has grown rapidly from an estimated 1 million in the global visitors in the country in 1990 to an estimated 9 million in 2012, according to the South Africa's tourism. Now, let's look at the different period stages, which is from 1990 to present.
The first globalization was caused by migration, which took place after the World War II. Because British airmen arrived in the country for training, South Africa played host to thousands of accidental tourists. Before 1960s, tourism was undervalued by South Africa government because the reinforcement of Afrikaner power and the early shaping of apartheid policies took priority over tourism. After a temporary lull, which followed the Sharpeville killings in 1960, black political organizations such as African National Congress and the Pan-Africanist Congress were banned. As a result, South African economy boomed, and so political peace seemed to return to the country. During the 1960s, South Africa experienced one of the highest growth rates in the world. This development indicated well for an increase in tourism, as the government was more confident of broadening its range of overseas connections. A crucial development in the water tourism world was the technology advances, which predicted the advent of commercial jet aircraft travel in late 1950s. The emergence of aircraft enhanced globalization to happen as traveling time was cut down. It indicated the future of mass market leisure travel was to be a north-south movement from the often inclement climates of North America and Northern Europe to sunnier southern parts. As a warm sunshine country, South Africa stood to benefit from the revolution in the tourism industry during the 1960s. Yet, South Africa's tourism hasn't been completely developed. The potential of overseas tourism market was not fully exploited, as the government insisted on high-income tourists, labeled as aristocratic passage, as opposed to high-volume mass tourism intakes. The other reason why they had this policy is to prevent social incidents happen, as some of tourists unwittingly breached the many petty apartheid regulations pertaining to separate facilities. In 1973, a shift did occur with the appointment of Owen Horwood as Minister of Tourism. He declared shortly after taking up the post, "Our policy is not to be selective. It's the time that we deal with our problems as any marketing-oriented organization should in an aggressive business-like manner." This increased awareness of all businessmen to foreign revenue. As a continuous expansion of business, more and more people around the world know about South Africa, which led to increase in investment of foreign companies. This is considered as the second move of globalization caused by trade. And in terms of the period from 1965 to 1970, South Africa's tourist arrivals actually outstripped the rate of the worldwide arrivals. Whereas the world showed a 7.2% growth rate, South Africa had an increase of 11.4% in arrivals. However, the complacency which created illusion that tourism and apartheid could comfortably inhabit the same space was increasingly challenged during the period from 1976 to 1990. The fifth major configuration which brought this home was Soweto's revolt of 1976.
Are not an isolated incident. As a matter of fact, we don't even regard them as Soweto riots as such, but a national disaster.
It was the worst kind of publicity for tourism, as it immediately raised the specter of general turbulence and danger. Not surprisingly then, the revolt in 1976 had a considerable impact on the number of overseas visitors. After an all-time high of 402,988 in 1975, numbers plummeted to 293,999 in 1977.
I believe that it is incumbent on all of us, white and black alike, to act with dignity and restraint in the testing time which lies before us.
Since South Africa government took effective measures to change the status immediately, the tourism increased again. Figures for overseas visitors in 1978 showed 12.7% growth from the previous year. However, during 1986, there was a volatile as the only way the government could assert control over the continuing unrest was to announce a nationwide state of emergency. The effect of the turmoil was reflected in the figures for 1986 dropping to 1973 levels. Even so, the numbers picked up again subsequently as oppositional groups spent time regrouping and the spurious calm returned.
After transitioning to a democracy in 1990s, South Africa became a tourism powerhouse with one of the best infrastructures in the region. During the past 2 decades, South Africa's tourism industry has grown rapidly from an estimated 1 million in the global visitors in the country in 1990 to an estimated 9 million in 2012, according to the South Africa's tourism. Now, let's look at the different period stages, which is from 1990 to present.
The first period stage is from 1990 to 2000. In 1994, South Africa government has announced an ambitious campaign to make tourism as country's #1 industry in creating new jobs, generating and attracting more foreign earnings and tourists by the year 2000. Following the peaceful elections in 1994, South Africa's international arrivals increased significantly from 3.1 million in 1993 to 5.7 million in 1998. In 2000, 41% of air travelers visited South Africa for holidays. A further 28% visited for business and 21% for visiting friends and relatives. In this year, average expenditure per foreign air arrival in South Africa was 24,500 rand with everything included. Now comes the second period stage, which is from 2001 to 2010. In 2002, South Africa travel and tourism is expected to generate 108.5 billion rand of economic activities, which equals to $10.8 billion. In 2006, government has approved to liberalize local airspace in attempt to increase competition in aviation industry and affordability of air travel. In 2009, South Africa experienced 5.7% increase in tourist arrivals from African land markets, while revenue generated by foreign arrivals increased by 7%. There is a significant increase in international tourist arrivals, which is 20% in 2010, compared to 2009 mainly because of the FIFA World Cup hosted in South Africa. Due to its growth in tourism massively since 1990, an increasing number of international airlines carrying out more weekly flights between South Africa and other countries. With hosting the 2010 FIFA World Cup sparked the South African tourism boom, with private business also geared up in anticipation of the hordes of followers attracted to the event. The National Treasury later allocated 574.9 million rand to South African national parks to develop infrastructure and improve facilities at the country's nature reserves ahead of 2010 FIFA World Cup. Tourism industry's contribution to the local economy peaked at 16 billion rand, mainly due to the impact of 2010 FIFA World Cup. The last period stage, which is from 2011 to 2013. City of Cape Town tourism industry generated 14.6 billion rand in 2012, up from 12.4 billion rand in 2009. South African Tourism and SouthAfricaHoliday.com has signed a joint marketing agreement aimed at travel trade and consumers to further boost tourist arrival numbers from key markets in Middle East to South Africa at 1st October 2013. Blue Flag program has been running internationally for 27 years and is designed to raise environmental awareness and increase sound environmental practices among tourists, local populations, and beach management. A total of 41 beaches have been awarded Blue Flag status in South Africa for this year, along with 5 marinas, 2 whale-watching boats, 1 commercial boat, and 1 private boat in 2013. Cape Town has also won several international awards from World Travel Awards. There is a decrease of 4.8% international tourist arrivals between 2010 and 2011 due to a massive boost in tourist arrivals for FIFA World Cup in 2010. In June 2013, there is an increase of 6.1% in international tourist arrival compared to June 2012. Tourist arrival is the first positive impact. After the democratic elections in 1994, tourism in South Africa has grown to become one of the country's main earners of foreign exchange and creator of employment. The growth rate in tourist arrival has also surpassed the world average for more than a decade. The growth is fueled by reasons that include hosting major events, while political turmoil and terrorist attacks in other parts of the world have had positive effects on South African arrivals. Second, a powerful tourism development path. Over the last 5 years, the real GDP rose an average 4.9%, faster than the 3% global average. As a result of the recent economic good health in South African tourism, global hotel chains are resulted to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in Africa over the coming years to meet rising demand for both international and continent-own fast-growing middle class. Therefore, South Africa has been developing its world-class infrastructure and resulted there is a high number of local people employed. Tourism helps South Africa's economic growth. International tourism has been accompanied by significant increases in government revenues. South African cultural heritage and natural landscape are the main selling point to tourists, which plays an important role to promote economic growth. Moreover, the generation of foreign currency earnings, airline tickets, hotel rooms were the main positive economic impacts associated with globalization of tourism industry in South Africa. Besides the positive impacts, the first problem is financial leakage, which is to pay for imports and other intermediaries, as well as the repatriation of foreign currencies to multinational corporations, a change in cultural values, which is another negative impact, and also not necessarily for the better. The socio-political dynamics of international tourism have resulted in the local community largely losing its cohesion as well as control over its own affairs. Practices such as prostitution, drug dealing, and black markets are among the often cited ills. Under the influence of globalization, South Africa is ranked as an upper-middle income economy by the World Bank and is considered to be a newly industrialized country. With the introduction of rapid development of economy, tourism boom, well-developed technology, and also glamorous culture, South Africa has become a focus of the world. Because of the 2010 FIFA World Cup and other global events held in South Africa, these factors enable reputation of South Africa spread out through the whole world, and tourists have also chosen South Africa as their #1 holiday destination. Despite of some negative impacts through globalization, South Africa could still gain a lot of benefits from globalization. However, government should pay much more attention on the negative impacts. They should fully utilize its country's advantages and also minimize the negative effects in order to keep improving South Africa's international image and its development level.